Parshiyos, Matos Masei, Shabbos Chazak. You know, it's probably pretty apparent that we're not giving our shir in our regular spot of Bikur Cholim of Lakewood headquarters, world headquarters of Bikur Cholim. Tonight happens to be the Bikur Cholim volunteers, the tzaddikim, are having their annual summer night out for the Olam. And as you see, there's a huge crowd behind us, and we actually have a huge crowd here, Baruch Hashem, also watching the shir. Lots going on here tonight. And it's a beautiful thing because these volunteers, the tzaddikim of Bikur Cholim, if anyone deserves, I mean, just this week, what I was hearing now about people driving back and forth to Minneapolis, driving back and forth different places in the United States, it's a really unbelievable thing, and the Bikur Cholim volunteers deserve everything. And tonight, they're having this beautiful Toyamea with full barbecue, swimming as soon. They're ready to jump in the pool as soon as we finish the shir. It happens to be that besides the Parshiyos of the week, that it's also the Bein Hametzarim. We're now at the time between Shavasar B'Tammuz and Tisha B'Av, the time of the Chorban Beis Hamikdash from almost 2,000 years ago. And Chazal teach us that Shoyalin V'Dorshin B'Hilchas HaMoyed. That's what Klal Yisrael does, that when it comes, let's say 30 days before a Yontiv, when it comes before a Yontiv, we want to make sure that we come in prepared. That we're prepared for the Yontiv, and we know what the Yontiv is about, we know what we have to take out of the Yontiv, and we know what we need to do as members of Klal Yisrael, and what we're doing with this Yontiv. And the same would apply also to Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av, which is coming up 2 weeks from today. Tisha B'Av, which will, Amir Hashem, will be a Yom Tif very soon. But Tisha B'Av, we have to know what it's all about. We are meant to prepare for each Yom Tif, and so too we have to prepare for Tisha B'Av also. And we need to learn the lessons of what Tisha B'Av means to each and every one of us today. And having said that, the first thing we need to understand really is we need to understand the Avelis of the Chorban. During these Bein Hametzarim and on Tisha B'Av, what is the Avelis of the Chorban? What are the nitzchi, as Nesivos Shalom always says, that in every yontif, in every occasion, in everything, there are lessons of nitzchi. There are lessons for today that we need to know, that we need to learn something from today to teach us a lesson for today. And the Nesivos Shalom tells us that it's definitely not just to mourn over something, the Beis Hamikdash. It's not just the Tisha B'Av. What we learn from Tisha B'Av is it's not just to mourn the past, something that we once had and we don't have anymore. As Klal Yisrael says in the Nesivos Shalom, Klal Yisrael does not celebrate things of just history. Klal Yisrael takes things from the past and applies it and uses it for today, applies it and uses it for ourselves to teach us a lesson how we could grow from today, not just to look back 2,000 years and said we had something and we don't have it anymore. It's something that would have no bearing on us today. We don't learn things out of that. And it must be that if we are mourning so much, and we know that the halacha tells us that we have to mourn, and we have to mourn for the Beis Hamikdash. And if we're mourning so much, then it has a lesson for now. It has a lesson to teach us, not just for now, but for the future, and us, and future generations. We say in Tehillim, as we all know, we say it even today, Yem eshkachech Yerushalayim tishkach yimini. And it's talking to us today that if I forget Yerushalayim, we have to always have Yerushalayim on our mind. Yerushalayim is alive. Yerushalayim can never be forgotten. So what is this Avelis? What is this thing that stays with us all of the time? So the first thing that we need to know, says in the Nesivos Shalom, is that the Avelis of the Beis Hamikdash has to be in a way that we're never complacent. We never come to terms with the loss. It needs to always be front and center on our minds, has to be on our hearts. The longing and the wanting of the Beis Hamikdash, the longing and the wanting for Yerushalayim has to be, and Nesivos Shalom speaks a lot about the fact that it's the longing, the tzipisa of the Yeshua, the longing and the wanting, that is actually going to be the building blocks of the Beis Hamikdash. When they show you the foundation of the Beis Hamikdash, when it's going to be built, the foundation is going to be built from the longing and the wanting of Yerushalayim and the Beis Hamikdash. The Nesivos Shalom tells us an interesting story. He says that there was once a Yid who came to the Abderuv, Chisiyogan Aleinu. And he came to the Abderuv and he was telling him all his troubles and his difficulties and all the things that are going on with his family, his difficulties in Parnasa, difficulties in his life. But it seemed to the Yid, as he was talking to the Abderuv, that for some reason the Ruv was not commiserating with him so much. He didn't seem like the Ruv was feeling bad for him. So he asked the Ruv, am I not coming across? Am I not getting my message across? So the Abderuv asked him, after he finished telling over all his stories of woe and all the things that are going on in his life, the Abderuv asks him, what about the fact that we did not bring a korban tamid today? Does it bother you? Does that bother you? That we did not bring the korban tamid this morning? That you came to terms with that? That doesn't bother you? You came to terms that there's no Beis Hamikdash, there's no korbanos, there's no avoida? That doesn't bother you? You gave me a whole list of your problems and that wasn't on the list. Why does that not matter to you? So the Abderuv's point was, he's trying to say that the worst thing for a Yid is if we say, like, we got over it. We ask 3 times a day in davening, Yerushalayim ircha barachamim tashuv. And if we just keep saying it by rote and we say it over and over, but we don't mean it, it means that unfortunately we came to terms with it. It was so many years ago. You know what? Does it really bother me? I'm still going to have my vacation. I'm still going to have my things, my house, my car. Beis Hamikdash doesn't mean so much to me. The lesson is that it has to be in the forefront of your mind, and things that bother you, that has to be something that bothers you too. We have to have the sincere longing, because the longing, as we said, helps the building, especially during these 3 weeks. And the more we long, the more we bring the Geula closer. Chazal tell us that there was a philosopher at the time of the Churban, and his name was Apalton. Apalton was a famous philosopher then. And after the Churban, this philosopher Apalton, he saw Yirmiyahu Hanavi. And Yirmiyahu Hanavi was despondent. Yirmiyahu Hanavi was crying and crying about the Churban. And he was lamenting the Churban Beis HaMikdash. So the philosopher Apalton, he knew Yirmiyahu Hanavi, one of the great men of the day. And he went to Yirmiyahu Hanavi and he asked somebody who was an acquaintance of Yirmiyahu Hanavi, and he asked, how could someone like Yirmiyahu Hanavi, who is such a chacham and such a brilliant man and such a great man, how could he be crying of something that was gone? Smart people don't cry over something that's gone. The Masei Mikdash had been destroyed. People were driven out of Yerushalayim. It's over. Get over it, right? What do we say today? We say you get past it, or you move on. Whatever it is, right? Come on, Yirmiyahu Hanavi, you're a smart man. What are you gaining by crying? That's what he wanted to know. So Yirmiyahu Hanavi answered, and he said, you know what? I can't. He says, it happens to be that this type of Churban, the Churban Beis HaMikdash, a goy, a non-Jew, can never understand. He will never understand what this is all about. He says, and now, Baruch Hashem, it sounds like we're having a flyover in Lekovid, the Bikur Cholim night out, but it happens to be we're right near McGuire Air Force Base, and that's what's flying over us. But the Avelus of a Yid, is the longing of a Yid. The Avelus of a Yid is different. The Avelus of the Yid is an Avelus of wanting. an avelus of striving, an avelus of longing for something. A goy can't understand that. And let me explain with a pasuk. The pasuk says in Parshas Shemois, we talk about Bas Paroi. So Bas Paroi, we know she saw Moshe Rabbeinu. She saw a young Jewish lad floating on the river. And she says like this, she says in the pasuk, V'hine nar boiche. She saw this young child, this young baby was crying. V'atoimer miyaldei ho'ivrim zeh. Zok the Nesivos Shalom, a beautiful, beautiful words on this pasuk. He says, V'atoimer, she saw, V'hine nar boiche. She saw that a young child was crying. V'atoimer miyaldei ivrim zeh. How did she know it was a Jewish child? She knew it was a Jewish child from the way this child was crying. Bas Paroi understood from the cry that this is a cry of a Jew. This is a cry of hoping, a cry of tikvah, a crying of knowing and hoping that things will get better soon. It's not the cry of a goy, which is a cry of yish, a cry of giving up, a cry of resignation, a cry of depression. That's not what we cry for. So when we cry on Tisha B'Av about the Churban, we cry because we hope. We cry because we want. So much so that we cry so hard because we know that the Rebbeinu Shalom is going to come through for us. And we know that he's going to bring the Geula. A goy would never be able to understand that. A goy cries when I give up. That's it. I give up. I can't anymore. I'm not going to have something. I give up. So for us, it's real. For us, it's alive. We live with it every day. Yerushalayim. We mean it. That we can't forget Yerushalayim. It's always on our mind. We're not going to ever forget Yerushalayim because we're hoping that we're going to go back there. So now we get a chance. We get a chance, Baruch Hashem, to visit Yerushalayim. You look in Yerushalayim at the beauty that once was. We have to understand Yerushalayim of today is not what was in the time of Beis Hamikdash. We're obsessed with our future as Klal Yisrael. We're obsessed with hope. We're obsessed of knowing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to take us out of this gullus one day soon. And we're building, remember that we're building with our longing. When we say in davening, as Semach David, when we say Yerushalayim Ircha, we're longing, we're wanting. Remember that those are the building blocks of the Beis Hamikdash, and that is really our job. And these 3 weeks, in 3 weeks, the job is not to be depressed. The job is not to be down and out in a bad mood. The job is to know that we are longing for something. We're longing for something more spiritual. We're longing for something great. We're longing for something that we're sure HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give to us, and we hope for that. So that makes us cry. The cry of a Yid is one of hope. And that's the way it has to be, that we can never forget, we can never let it not be at the forefront of our mind. It has to be the first thing on our mind. And we should be zoicha that next year's night out for the volunteers is going to be Bikkur Cholim of Yerushalayim, Tel Aviv, Bnei Brak, Tveria. Tzfas is going to be, instead of driving to Minneapolis, they're going to be driving cars up to Miron, up to Tzfas, up to from all 4 sides of Eretz Yisrael. And we should all be zoicha and learn this lesson. Have in mind when you daven the next 3 weeks, learn this lesson of Yerushalayim, learn the lessons of what it means to hope. And for a Yid, what Churban means to a Yid and what it means to understand that we cry because we hope.